When we look at emotions and dog emotions, the biggest thing that is trending right now, popularity-wise, is around separation. Separation anxiety, separation phobias, fears, um, that attachment issues. And that actually leads into grief quite a bit because dogs are experiencing about as much chaos as we are in the world. And I don't take that lightly. I don't want to focus on the chaos in the world, but it would just, I think, be irresponsible to not mention how big it is, and that I don't want to keep talking about it each week, but it is huge. And our emotions are all over the place. And a lot of us feeling a little crazy and helpless, and then a lot of people feeling good, and big. And so it's kind of big on either way. And that affects our dogs. But I want to focus on grief being number one, because a lot of us have had dogs going through maybe losing another dog in the household or our change in our household. And sometimes that change means we could be going through a relationship change, kids leaving to go to college, even just going back to school, like summer is over, we're heading back to school. That can be a change that brings about grief in dogs. So let's get geeky science first for a minute. I am going to sum up all of the research that has been done with dogs and grief. Are you ready? This is 50 years of research of, do dogs experience grief? We don't know. So there you go. And I don't mean that to be flippant. It's just I want you to take that what we're talking about is not necessarily fact. It's the cutting edge of research right now, that a lot of us think we know it, but it's hard to prove. And why is it hard to prove? Is because what is grief? And how do we grieve can be different from person to person. So how are we ever going to study that in dogs? The second thing that's really interesting is that it's hard to, how do I say this? We set up scenarios for research about grief, but dogs know we're faking it. So we get really bizarre results because how you can kind of fake crying and dogs go, yeah, but it's a different situation, right? So we can't actually study this. So we actually don't know how dogs experience grief. Mark Bekoff talks a lot about it with dog emotions, because he talks about that dogs are social animals. So they are going to experience some kind of grief, but we don't know what that looks like. And it's been rarely seen in the wild. Unlike other species, elephants, donkeys, mules, some other horses, they will outwardly grieve and they stand around a deceased, conspecific is what we call it. That's the same, a species of the same species. They stand around conspecifics and grieve, and they will, can be hours to days to sometimes weeks, depending on what's going on. Dogs, on the other hand, not as much. There's been some research. I'm trying to remember who we saw about. They were burying pups. I think it was Beckus, not Beckoff, but Beckus said, they saw a mother wolf bury pups. Maybe that was a sign of. So, but we haven't really actually seen it. And then if we do, we don't actually know what we're looking at. So we don't always know the behavior signs. So rather than talk about, do dogs experience grief, let's talk about what to do when we think they're experiencing grief. Now, the couple things that we got to be careful of when we talk about this is very, very easy to anthropomorphize. I get that word right? Anthropomorphication. It's to put our own feelings onto the dog. So here's the thing. Sometimes when they lose one of their buddies, and let's talk about conspecific. So it's a dog would lose another dog in the household. We look around and we say, oh, look, they're moping and they're sad and they're lying around, and this is rough. We need to look at how dogs react, though. Are they grieving, or are they reacting and responding to our own change in the household? Maybe it's our grief, the change in how people are coming over, or if we lost a human of the house, that people are coming over with food or supplies and the doorbell's ringing and people are in and out and the dog goes, wow, that's a lot. I'm going to go over here and take a nap and shut down. Part of those 5 Fs: fight, flight, freeze, fiddle, faint. They don't necessarily faint, but they're going into shutdown, overwhelm mode. And that could be because it was a huge change in the household. So that might be their expression. And we look at it and go, oh, see, they're moping. They must be feeling sad. Some dogs, I know this sounds cold. Sorry, Luna. Some dogs are actually quite happy to lose the other dogs in the household because they're like, hey, they've been bugging me anyway. I'm free now to roam. I'm not getting bugged by the puppy. It's not always the case. There are definite grief, and I'm sure a lot of us have stories of that, of losing somebody else in the house and seeing what happened with our dogs. But we got to be careful of not putting all of our stuff onto the dog because they might just be reacting to something else. They might be reacting to all the different change in the household. So let's look at then what do we do to support our dogs? Because we got to recognize this impulse to put our feelings on dogs. Some of them may be true, but then in what case we go, well, what does it matter if we know if a dog is feeling grief or if we can just support them? So I'm going to be on the side of, well, let's get into practical thing of what we can do. So I had a whiteboard over there and I've already explained all this. I can't believe you guys missed it. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant on that whiteboard. So what I want you to do, if you can, 2 pieces of paper, because I don't have a board back here, that there's 2 kinds of grief we're going to break this into, or 2 kinds of things that can happen: known and unknown. So we want different sides of paper or whatever you want to look at. We can look at a little difference in nuances of how we deal with this. The expected tragedy, something's going to happen, and unexpected. So let's go with expected. That's the known stuff. What do we need to do? So first, I want you to think about the brain work concepts that we looked at with your training plan that you guys all have, right? Some of you I've done the consults, so some of you are far along in a training plan. Some people haven't started it. It's okay wherever you are. That's not pressure. Just saying you have the information about these brain work concepts. So if you look through those, we start thinking, well, what would my dog need if we know there's going to be a big change in the household? Now, I want to say big change. It doesn't necessarily have to be death on grief. It could be that, like we said, change in a relationship. A divorce is going to happen. A kid's going away to college. We have an older dog that we know is going to pass on at some point, or another species in the house that the dog was close to. I'm not allowed to say the word feline, or Luna will go crazy over here. So, nor any word that rhymes with that. But that's what we look at is, so when we know that something is going to happen, how do we prepare our dog? So when we look at our brain work concepts, see if you can talk about, or think about, well, what brain development would they have to have? If we kind of go, dogs might experience grief about the level of a 2 or 3-year-old child. We can kind of say, well, they don't maybe understand the nuances of what's happening, but they get that there's change. So what do we need to do? First thing we can do is change up our own routine with the dog. And that takes brain work concept, flexibility, adaptability. So we need to teach our dogs ahead of time how to adapt to the change that's coming up. Now, this is going to be handy in lots of situations, so it's not just grief, but change up their eating food time. I want a dog that can eat between 4:30 and 6:30 at night, not 5:15, human, food. I mean, I might do that with my cocktails, but dogs should be a little bit more chill than what I am. So we want to change up that routine. You want to change feeding times, feeding places, change doors that you leave in and out of the house. Anything you can think of, changing where they sleep or nap, changing spots, even if it's, I've got the same spot I sit on the couch every night to watch TV, sit at the other end of the couch. Little things like that help your dog start going, hey, something's up. I can adapt. I can be a little more flexible. I can be a little bit more fluid in my thinking and my approach to the day. So anything we can do to change that routine can be changing the time you walk, the direction you walk. Just think of it as, hey, if I know I've got an older dog in the house or a sick other dog, let's start with change now. Let's start preparing and maybe feeding in different locations. I mean, we could go through any kind of change. And I can, if you guys have questions, feel free, type them in or raise your hand and we'll get to them here. Now that I'm in front of my computer and I actually can see. The great part of this is it can also work if your dog, like say, you know, your dog's going into surgery, and they're going to have a big surgery and have to be off their feet or, you know, different kind of eating, something that's going to happen. We want to ease them into that as much as possible. So we go with change. And how do we change? Just change up the routine. Simple, simple, helps them learn a little bit more flexibility and adaptability. And then what's another way? Write down the word solo time. So we want to start separating dogs from the pack. And this doesn't just mean the dog that's sick or the one that is going to be going through any change or the human. We want to start spending time with our dog independently so that the dog knows, hey, I can do this on my own. Often when we have 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs, we do everything all the time all together because it's very hard to walk 5 dogs separately at different times of the day. You'd be a dog walker. But we want to get our dog into, oh, I can spend time with just my human and have just as much fun. It's not all chaos and crazy. It's dog fluid time. So we can start feeding the dog separately. We can take one dog out on a walk, leave the other one at home, then vice versa. We want to start doing enough things that those dogs can get a little bit of independence. So that's a great thing. You can also help with neighbors, friends, this kind of thing, that have them take a dog for a walk for you. Start relying on asking for help, which is okay to do, I've heard. So we want to start spending time with our dogs separately. And that helps them also say, oh, I can adapt, I can change, and I'm actually spending time with this human one-on-one is actually pretty darn fun. And then the third piece, this is if there's known, and we're preparing them for it, is movement. Just movement. The more that we can change locations and work with our dog in various games, just keep them learning, they will start concentrating on, oh, that's actually really fun to do. I'm not concentrating on all the changes happening. And why we end on movement on that one is because it's, if we go over to the unknown column, like this is now the unexpected tragedy happened. I cry when I think about these things, but you know, we took our dog to the vet and oops, something terrible happened and they had to be put down that day, or hit by a car, or one of the many, many things that can happen, or maybe it's a sudden loss of a human in your house. So those are the tragedies. Movement is number one with our dogs. And that is the hardest thing for us, because if we often feel grief, we are going to go under the covers and hide. Or if we're feeling depression, we're going to just hide. And with dogs, the biggest thing is getting them movement. That movement creates that motivation, and the motivation helps their brains adjust. So the more we can get out, and even if it's not walking, because we might not be on a calm walk, we can get those movement patterns. Dish to dish, for those of you that are playing that. Pace changes in walks. So we walk, start walking fairly quickly, keeping our dog entertained. We're walking, then we gradually, over maybe 10, 15 minutes, slow our walk down to the point that we're barely moving, and seeing if our dog can just adapt and learn to chill with us, and then slowly speed up. And when they get good at that, we can do quicker pace changes where we run a few steps and walk a few steps and run a few steps. The bonus of this is that it actually helps us too when we're grieving. Movement is amazing. It's the last thing most of us want to do, but it does help. So the number one thing we can do in an unexpected tragedy is get our dogs moving. The other thing in unexpected tragedy is helping our dogs find a calm place. That if there's a tragedy in the household, our emotions can be big, and that's really stressful on dogs. So that's when we want to practice and say, hey, they've got their crate or kennel, or we give them space. Now, the hard part, I just want to be honest with this, is that if I'm grieving, what's the first thing I want? I want my dog with me, like, because that's the buddy that I got. But unfortunately, often dogs need space. So we have to allow them that space, that they have an area in the house that they get to go to that's not full of people and grief and sadness. Because chances are they're going to bounce and recover quicker than we are. But if we stay in grief, which is fine to do, I'm not telling anyone how to grieve. I want to be really clear about that. But if we stay in a depressed state, our dogs are going to need more and more space, because they can smell, they can get the anxiety, and they're like, what am I, how do I cope with this? So in order to get the movement, we may really need to rely on friends, and that's our network that we can use. But why I want to say the unknown is that those are the hardest ones to deal with. And those are the ones that dogs suddenly, they're often responding to the fact that one day there was 3 dogs and now there's 2 dogs. And they're like, well, that's a whole change in routine. So it's more of the nuts and bolts that they're facing rather than the deep emotions. And it's not to say they don't have emotions, because I honestly believe they do. Research is showing more and more that they do experience grief. But if you have the opportunity to let them see or be around the person or animal that is deceased, they will be able to sense that dog person is gone, not there anymore. Okay, what's next? And they tend to move on. But if we just remove that other dog quickly, there can be lingering scent, unknown, like where there's a little sense of anxiety. Where's that dog coming back? What's happening? So if at all possible, along with the movement, we can let the dog actually see and understand that the other animal that was there is no longer there. And they'll get that very quickly. They're just a little scent. It's usually a nudge, and they kind of go, well, Sometimes they'll lie down next to them, but allowing that space and then allowing them to go, okay, they can leave. That is actually, it's huge on what we can do with dogs in that world, because they actually sense, okay, that happened and now we can move on. So movement, I hate the word closure, because there's no closure. But if they can actually smell and scent that the living thing is no longer alive. I'm going to keep saying human dog. It's the same. It just sounds really callous at times, I know, to put dogs and humans all together, but it is. And for some of us, it's going to be harder to lose dogs than humans. Some of us, it's the same. Everybody's going to go through their thing. So that's what I want to talk about with dog grief, is that it's really it's that association and the relationships of their social bonds, and we've got to help them be a little flexible. So that's where training can happen all the time for preparing them for the unexpected. Obviously, that works great with fireworks, with shopping carts, with another dog approaching. Expecting the unexpected and being okay with that is a great skill to have. And as dogs go through grief, it's invaluable that they have the experience of flexibility and movement. So if there's any questions on that, you can let me know, but I want to go back through. So it's really, if you know something's coming, we can help support our dog by changing up that routine, spending time apart, separating our dogs, and getting them movement and moving. If it's an unexpected tragedy and we know what they're going through, we can say movement is the best thing. And then letting them say their goodbyes, which if possible, and if not, it's okay. It's not, that's why I want to put it second, because it's not the primary thing. Like if a dog didn't say goodbye to another dog, they will get over it. It's just sometimes there's a little confusion, like, hey, what happened? There's smell, there's stuff still around, but suddenly everything's different. We want to be able to, if possible, they can go scent that object and say, oh, I got it. That's not a live object anymore. Let's move on. And they'll bounce back pretty quick. I wanted to touch, at least when we talked about dog emotions and grief, is the fine line of putting our own stuff onto our dog, when dog may just be responding to the change in the household, meaning I get fed at different times, or, hey, there's nobody here bugging me. I get time to sleep. We want to make sure that we don't always project our stuff onto our dogs, and that we stop long enough to say our dogs do have emotions and they are going through some change, there's things we can do to prepare them for it, which is teaching them about flexibility, working their brain, having some solo time, and then moving. And movement creates motivation. And if it's an unexpected tragedy, getting that movement in immediately. And then if they can put the scent closure to being around the deceased thing, that's great. And that honestly it works for, well, I'm going to be careful with this one. It can work even when there's been an object that maybe they helped to kill at one point. Once they see it's dead, most dogs have been trained away from the dissect piece, meaning they don't go devour it, but we can then use that as a training. That'll be for a different day. I don't want to confuse you, but it does help with the scent that they go, oh yeah, it's actually not alive. It's not worth playing with. Well, that's all I got for today. Other than I can talk about dogs forever. Let me know what you need and I will get you guys the answers. And until then, remain curious, calm, connected. Take care.